In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Final Draft 13's Navigator to help you write and revise your screenplay. The reason that this is one video instead of two is because I don't know any writer who goes from fade in to fade out all in one shot. Writing is rewriting. As we go through this, I'll show you some of the things that I find a little annoying about the Navigator, as well as some of the limitations of the Navigator. So let's jump in. Okay, what you're looking at here is the first draft of the first act of a horror film that I'm currently writing. Now, mostly everything in this document has either been changed or thrown out or rewritten, but it's still copyrighted in this current form, so don't steal anything. Okay, so a few things. I'm not going to go into how to change the color of your outline or naming your elements. All of that can be found in my other video about outlining. But what I will show is a couple things that I do. I change my formatting to have bold and underline for my slug lines. I also change the spacing a little bit. And when I'm writing, I turn on my scene numbers. Scene numbers are really only used for shooting scripts. They're not used for actual scripts, so never submit something to competition with scene numbers in them. But I do it so that I could have a column here for scene number. And that's because when you have your outline showing, the pages don't match up. And that's one of the limitations of Final Draft. So like right now, you can see everything on the page. And so it puts this, fresh bruises form a ring around her waistline. It puts it on page 2. But when I go and I hide the outline, that line is now on page 1. So all of these pages over here in this page column change if I'm showing the outline in my script. That can be really confusing. And so if you're going to write your screenplay inside of your outline, I would say turn on scene numbers just so that you can keep track of them here in the scene number column. How do you do that? Well, you go into productions and you go into scene numbers, and then you can turn them off. So I'm going to remove them to show you what it looks like. There, they're gone. The reason it's in production is because this is a shooting script tool. It's not meant for spec scripts or competition scripts. So let's put them back in there just so that they're there. Laying out the page here, I have my outline element and my summary. That's all in here. So before I write, this is everything that's in my first act. A problem is that I have all of these scenes that I decided on in my outline, and then I went in and I actually wrote the scenes, but they're not lining up because I just wrote them. And so now if I want to keep everything kind of where it's supposed to be, I gotta drag stuff up. They get to Clem's house. She uses the bathroom. I think this is all right. I don't even know. At the farm, I don't know, where the farm might be down here, so I might have to move this up there. You can see why this is a problem. The other reason that this is a problem is because you have all of this clutter on the screen instead of just writing. All right, but moving past that limitation, let me show you some of the things that you can do while you're writing your script. First, let's go into characters, okay? I'm going to start here in my teaser. This is where I introduce Iris. She's the demon monster in my horror film. And then the teaser takes place in 1978. So here I've highlighted Iris. And when you double click to highlight, it brings up all of this stuff to tag it. That's for production. You just ignore that. All right. So you can hit escape. It's still highlighted. Now when you right click, you can do insert non-speaking character. It'll put in Iris because that's what you've highlighted. You put in OK, and there you go. Iris is now a non-speaking character in the scene. This is not something you have to worry about in a scene where there are people talking, because as I said previously, the character element is the data point that populates the speaking characters element. But the non-speaking characters you have to put in manually. So another example of that would be here in the scene where they go into the town Nobody's talking, but Travis is there. Got to get rid of the tags. I'm going to right click, insert non-speaking, Travis. I'm going to go Joanne, same thing, insert Joanne. Locals, I'm going to insert locals. This is really a production level feature, but if you're doing something like a war film, or if you've got an ensemble and you're trying to track where everybody is in a scene, let's say you have 5 soldiers in a scene, 2 of them are fighting and not talking, but you gotta know that they're in the scene because you're tracking their arcs or you're tracking what they're doing, adding them manually may benefit you. Now, once I'm done with this sort of introduction to what you can do, we're gonna time travel into the future a little bit, and I'll show you what the first draft kind of looks like after you've messed around with it a bunch, to show you what the reports can do and how everything looks on the page. But let's leave script for now and let's go into characters. I usually name my leading woman Alice. I just do. It's just the name that I like, and it's easier for me. I hate coming up with new names. So Joanne was just that was like a placeholder. I want to change Joanne's name to Alice. All I have to do is double click and hit enter. It's going to ask me if I want to rename her. Yes, I do. And now if you go down and look, all of Joanne's stuff has turned into Alice. In the action, in the dialogue, everywhere. Wherever it said Joanne, it now says Alice. Same can be said for Travis. I always name my main male characters Simon. Don't know why, just do. Travis was just a placeholder. I'm going to change Travis's name to Simon. Again, whole thing gets updated automatically. It's a great thing to do if you change your mind last second about what you want your characters' names to be. The gender and the age, I'll show you this in the future, how this populates the inclusivity analysis. So let's just leave that for now. Let's go into script notes. I covered this in my last video, but I'll just go over it again. First thing that I'll say is like, all right, I'm looking at this, I'm going to insert a script note, and I'm going to do everything in the Navigator. The note is going to say, what if we use an image here instead of text? The type of note, this is going to be, I'm going to say style format, and the color, make it red, why not? So now when I look over here, everything is in there. Style and format, and the color, the only thing we don't have here is a title. I'll put a title in here. I'll say highway sign idea. So now everything's in there and it's saved. And you go all the way through your script as you're writing, as you get new ideas, as things start popping into your mind, you can put it in there and it'll populate here. You'll see why that's cool when we jump forward in time. Let's go back to the script tab for a second. Adding a summary to a scene can be really helpful if you're the type of person who likes to look at everything laid out like index cards on a bulletin board. Don't mistake that with the beat board. 2 different things. But I'm going to put here a summary to the highway scene over here, and I'm just going to say we establish Solace as a sleepy town that is kind of run down. Add visual markers so that when we move forward in time, we know we are in the same place. When you add it here in the Navigator, it adds it here in the script, unless you hide your outline. When you hide your outline, and here you go again, look, we have refresh issues. Shut the Navigator, reopen it. When you reopen it, you'll see like all of your acts, beats, and scenes and summaries are all gone, and they're not in the script anymore. So now you're looking at actual pages, which is what I like. I like to know the actual pages, but since I wrote the summary in the Navigator next to the scene, I can still see it in the Navigator. How is this useful? If you change your view to index cards with summaries, here you go. First scene with a summary. If you're really good about capturing the essence of your scene in a summary, you can look at your script in this format and move things around if you want, right? Because this is the type of thing that you can drag and drop these scenes wherever you want. You can reorder stuff. Say I want to move this over here. That drives me bonkers. I don't do that, but I'm sure people do. That's the same with the scene view. You can just kind of like drag this stuff all over the place and reorganize your script, and then go back into your script here. And if you show your outline in the script, everything's going to be all messed up. So you end up spending more time cleaning up your screenplay on the page than you do writing it. And if you're a procrastinator, that's great. But if you're looking to finish a screenplay, not so great. Let's time travel. All right, look at what we have here. I have not gone through the whole first draft to do this because this is an old draft. I don't need to do this, so I just stopped here on page 7. But there's a lot of stuff in here that I want to show you that I find really, really useful with the Navigator. We're going to go tab by tab to show you. First of all, first thing I did was I deleted all of the outline elements. So if I do show outline and script, right, the only thing it's going to pull up are the summaries that are in here in the Navigator. That also messes up your page count. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hide that. I got rid of all of that stuff because I keep it in a separate document, or I keep it in a notepad, or I keep it on a whiteboard. I never keep it in the same document as my script. Look at all the summaries here. I've taken some time to put summaries into all of these scenes so that I could show you what this does to your index cards. I can now go through my screenplay in this view and know exactly what I'm looking at. And if something looks off, I can address it instead of having to just scroll through my whole screenplay. That's what the summary does. I've also added a length column here from the columns panel, length right there, because when I look at this right here, this scene, this is a 5 4/8. For anyone who doesn't know, screenplay pages are divided into eighths. I'm sure there's a reason for that, but I don't know the reason for that. But they're divided into eighths. I look at this and I see a 5 4/8 length scene when most of my scenes are a page to 2 pages, and I think, yeah, probably got some fat to trim on that scene. Really good way to look at the length of your scenes without having to scroll through it and just guess. Next thing, let's look at some reports. If I do a script report, I can pick anything I want over here to generate into a new document. I want my scene heading. I don't want my acts, beats, and scenes. This all matches the elements from your element dropdown. I want my summaries in there. That's all I want. My scene headings and my summaries. And all it is your slug line and whatever you wrote in your summary column. You can take this, print it, mark it up, and work your script that way if you so choose. The point of all this is that there are so many ways to look at your screenplay while writing. This is just one of those ways. You've got all these reports you can choose from. Play around with them. See what you like best or not at all. But that's a really good feature. Now, let's look at the characters here, okay? Because I've done a little work on here just to show you what it looks like. And I go through and I went through each scene and I manually put in the non-speaking characters, see, and the speaking characters. Like here we have a pregnant woman, we have 3 people that talk, and I went ahead and did that for all of these scenes because when you run a report out of characters, you can actually see how many scenes a character is in that they don't talk in. That's, again, that's more for production, to see how many times, like, Tom Cruise is going to appear in a scene where he's not talking. You still got to pay him for that day. You still got to, everybody's got to mobilize. You have all of these different teams, makeup, wardrobe, whatever. They're going to have to be there on the day that you schedule that scene to be shot. So that's really what this is for. But if you're looking to organize, like I said, an ensemble or a war film or something like that, maybe you want to use this feature. I don't use this feature. Ever. I never have that open. Let's go to characters. I went ahead and I put in a couple characteristics, and you can do anything here from the columns drop down. All of these different traits. You can pick one. You can make one yourself. In my last video, I made a hair color trait, and then you got to fill it in for each character. Why? When you hit the inclusivity panel, this shows you, when you click on whatever trait you're looking for, how it's divided by characters, dialogue, scenes. So let's say I just want one trait to be shown. Characters, this is how it all breaks down. And you can save it out like this and send it to whoever you need to send it to, if inclusivity is one of the things that you are concerned about or interested in when you're writing your script. As I already said, the major thing I use the character tab for is to rename my characters. But let's look at some reports here. Let's look at the cast report. Here's the total number of non-speaking scenes. That's what I was talking about. Speaking scenes, non-speaking scenes. This is everything. 12 speaking scenes, 3 non-speaking scenes, 15 total scenes. She's the lead. That makes sense. If you're trying to track to make sure that, like, if you're writing a script with co-leads, is it equally split, or is one favored over the other? This is kind of how you would gauge that visually. All right, let's do a character report. And this is pretty cool. It's individual to the character. I'll select Alice because she's my main character. And I'm only going to include the scene headings, not the dialogue or arc beats or anything like that. But I want to know, I want to have a high level view of Alice as a character. So here's what it gives me. She speaks 46 times, 506 words. She appears in 3 scenes as a non-speaking character. She interacts mostly with Bonnie, I guess. I didn't know that. And then here's the detail scene and it goes through the whole script with the pages and everything. So if you're tracking your characters, you want to see how much screen time they have, how much page space they have. Great way to do it. What I find most helpful is in the script notes tab. Script notes are great, but there are also limitations, and I'll show you why. The best thing about script notes is that you can run a report on them. I want the title, the body, the page, the type, and we're going to do it in script order. Here's what you get. All of my notes that I gave to myself as I was rewriting or thinking and planning, they're all in here. They're all organized. And I can go through and I can read them like this instead of scrolling, clicking, scrolling. That is a great feature to have, especially if you're collaborating with somebody. But there's a big limitation to script notes. I'm going to add a new script note here, and I'm just going to name it. The title is going to be test, and the body's going to be this is a test. I'm going to assign it as a plot note. So here we have the note, we have the type of note, and if you click on it here, because I don't have the column turned on, I guess I could put the title there. All right, so now the title's there, and I'm going to drag it there. So here's the limitation. You would think that because I picked plot note, it would be red, because my plot notes are red. It doesn't. Every time you add a note, if you want them color-coded, you have to go in and you got to do it manually. That is such a headache and an unnecessary frustration point. Final Draft, please, in Final Draft 14, fix this and make it automatic. If I set my plot note to red, just keep it as red. Otherwise, why do you have a color function at all? Anyway, that's one of the things that irritates me about Final Draft 13. But having the ability to print out that script notes report is invaluable. So that's pretty much everything you need to know as you're working through your script as a workflow. The main things that I use in my workflow are script notes 100%, and maybe summaries if I'm feeling really organized and I really want to have a a really condensed version of my screenplay. I'll go in and I'll add detailed summaries so that when I go to that summary page, I can print that out and I can look at it. But honestly, I'm really only using script notes as I go through things, and I'm passively looking at the length of the scenes as I go through things. What can't the Navigator do? The Navigator can't handle actual rewrites and revisions on subsequent drafts. When you turn on track changes and you get rid of something, you're going to see the track change in your script. There's no way to see it represented in the Navigator. There's nothing you can do about that. They're not connected. The same thing goes for revisions. If I go into revision mode and now I start changing things, get my asterisks over here. I've got my track changes. I've got my asterisks. None of that is represented on the Navigator. So don't rely on the Navigator for draft 1 versus draft 2 or anything like that. The Navigator is best for keeping you organized through the writing process and through the outlining process as well. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about how to use the Navigator to outline, write, and rewrite or revise your screenplay. If you found this useful, come back to the channel for more tips and tricks for final draft, for videos about screenplay architecture, deep dives into screenplays, and some other fun stuff as well. And if there's something that I missed or got wrong, maybe there's a feature that's super useful that I just overlooked, let me know in the comments below. And when Final Draft comes out with a new version, version 14, I'll make sure to update these tutorials, these walkthroughs, so that you know what's new and what you can use and what you can ignore. So until next page, I'm Matt Weiner, and this is Fade In, a channel dedicated to the art of screenwriting.